Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, there's a varying arrangement of cottages, all well appointed really here at Penrose Cottages. Very nice, lovely stone, and our cottage overlooks the lovely Camel Valley. Just the sort of morning that for an artist it's an absolute dream. Look at that, look at the way the sun shines there. Isn't that fantastic? And there is Snappers, our cottage for the week, and it overlooks the valley. The atmosphere is absolutely terrific here. Sheep in the fields, lovely location. That's our cottage, Snappers, which is a small little cottage, but it's on a wonderful location. But there are bigger cottages to hire within the little, well, it's not a development, it's conversions of farm buildings really. Well, the sun has just popped out, hoping that the rain holds off. I've got necessary brollies if not, but I'm going to paint this lovely little cottage that we're staying in here at Penrose Burton, which makes a nice little subject. Got the nice stone, you've got a bit of distance, hills in the distance, and of course this lovely old tree in the foreground. So let me lead you through the painting process. Well, there's the cottage in hand. Just thought it's a nice little subject, just for those of you that want something simple really, and fairly easy to achieve. So that's my setup basically, and that's my watercolour paper. So I'm just going to quickly put that down onto the watercolour paper with pencil, and then I'm going to lead you through the painting process. Quite a slope to it, heads down to there. This one is a little sharper slope, and that heads down to there. So if you have a look at the subject, you'll see what I mean. The apex of the roof is there. This corner is a little lower than this one, and there's a slope on the land as you go away. So, and the apex of the roof is there. So that's relatively easy, just got to put the windows in. Now I'm having to move a bit because rain is on its way. I can see it coming, I think I can anyway. So we've got to depict a little bit of blue. I'm going to put blue in because we did have some lovely blue sky earlier, and I'm going into dry paper, but I'm using the large brush, and I'm using cobalt blue for the blue. I'm going to put a little bit of Prussian with that just to thicken it a little, and I'm using, as I say, a brush like that. I'm just weakening the colour a little bit with water like that. Then I'm going to put in just a little bit more in this lower area there. Trying to go around the chimney if I can, but that's not an exact science when you're painting outside like that. Now I'm using burnt umber and ultramarine going into that same part of the palette, and by doing that I'll get some lovely blue-grey clouds, because that is the type of day it is. So we have a lovely blue-grey cloud there, another one there, and they're sort of sweeping across the landscape really. We have the house over the back. There we go. And then within that, we have to have some warmth. Putting red again and just softening as those clouds lay in. There we are. I think I'm right in saying that more or less sets the scene for this lovely painting. Yeah, nice bit of light. Just cool that down a little bit there, just before it dries. Just let it do its own thing. Okay, now in the distance is very cool grey land. Cobalt blue, I'm using light red. Cobalt blue and light red to create that distant land we can see there. Now there are cottages, but I'm going to paint this as if it's in shadow. Bit of yellow going in there because I can see a little bit of green, but other than that, a little bit more yellow now as it comes forward. That's it. And that field there, quite considerably yellow. And then we come down, there's a hedge there, but let's just pick around that area and just follow that line of the roof. There we go. And just pull that across so it doesn't look down. And yeah, there we go. Down there. And we've got to be around this bush here because I want that to be left unpainted. And that hedge there is quite uneven too. There we are. Now drop more blue, no more water, and a bit of red because I want to pick up on the top edge. So it's cobalt blue and light red, very, very strong. I want to pick up some trees that are standing against the sky on the horizon line, like that. And there's a wooded area there. See how they're just getting lost in amongst the wooded area there, another tree there, bit of hedging, and then there's another little, right, a bit more blue, bit of hedging there, and just some little touches, but these ones will be slightly darker as they run out of picture. There we are, nice and soft. Now the odd little punch of red always works well in these little areas, not so much there, but just to pull the eye in, and then we'll sort out one or two buildings there. Then we have yellow with the blue to create quite a dull sort of hedge area that stands up behind that building there. Oh, and it stands there, look. So these are all background washes. That's a hedge. Bit more yellow going in here now with a bit of burnt sienna to get me some autumn colours. The base of that tree, like that, just before it dries. I don't mind a bit of misting to that. I've actually covered that over, but I don't mind. It's that sort of day, and when you get that sort of day, you've got to depict that sort of day. That's my opinion anyway. And that tree will just pop out from the back there. So that's good. That's all I need to do for the first stage, the sky and a bit of distance. While that's drying, I'm just going to sweep down some cadmium yellow. It's quite a bright yellow this today on the grass. So I want to depict that and that comes down to there, and then round the patio area like that. A bit more yellow as we come forward. You can always dull it back, but it's more difficult to make it brilliant in colour. And all we need to do for that is a bit of blue and a little bit more yellow in, and let's just pull that across like that. One or two little touches like that, just to pull that towards us, and just so it's not too neat and tidy. Oh, and my favourite, a little bit of red, particularly along the edges. We've got some stones there, but just a little bit of blue. Let's get that out of the way. It always manages to stick its neck in there somewhere. So let's just one or two little touches along those edges. Brilliant, that's all we need. Don't want to draw a line, just 1 or 2 little touches. And that is as far as we need to go for that. Another simple little passage. Now to start the building, I'm going to put in, I can see there are some very, very light slate or stones within that building. So I'm putting in the very light ones, some light ones on the end there. So I'm leaving just sufficient, or I've got to leave there where that bush overhangs and creates a lovely bit of light. So that's what I'm doing there, and then I'm finishing again here. That's it, and I'm just sweeping across. Cleaner the better, and then just a little bit of light there, come right down to there, and not dissimilar but a little darker for the patio area. Got some seating to go on there at some point, but that's that. Bit of red now. It's a bit too much. That is, I say red, it's actually burnt sienna. So that's your burnt sienna for the shed. I just felt that need. Maybe I'd have knocked that back later. And there as well, the frontage, there's a door there. Or there's a window on the side, but we can put that in later. The roof will come later too. So that's that seems to be working quite well. And then I'm going to add plenty of blue for the path. Now the path comes round the back there. There is an edging curbstone that would be nice to leave if I could. It's very uneven anyway, so it doesn't matter if it disappears in places. There we go. A bit more blue in there just to thicken up this side. Pull that out. There we go. And that's that stage. Now while that's drying, we'll just put this roof in. Very light sort of grey, almost sort of almost slate really, but it's not really, but it's I don't know, it's the colour that works well for that. And while I have that colour, I can see some little touches of that within this stonework, but I don't want to go too dark. That is too dark. This is what you've got to be careful of, giving an impression of the whole thing without being too dark, or indeed too detailed, because that is another thing that can cause lots of problems later on. And then we have some very grey, light red, cobalt blue, that's the colours I'm using for this. And then I'm adding a yellow to make a grey. And that should, raw sienna, there we go. Raw sienna, cobalt blue, light red. It's more or less a Cotswold stone mix really. But plenty of blue. There we are. Now this is going to be a little darker. It's not quite grey, so we need red, we need yellow. There we go. Warm grey, that's it. There we are. And these are probably the darkest of any of these stones, and I'm trying to go in just before it dries really, because there is a lintel stone across the top, so I've got to put that in as a solid stone. But other than that, I'm just trying to get that impression of stonework without painting every single one in. And here you just got little, more or less, anyway, we'll deal with that shortly. Don't want to get bogged down with that until we've finished this area here. Some of them are standing up, some are a little bit like that. And then, of course, we go into the area here where we've got gaps for that tree, which is fairly dark, but it will show up the funnel of light on those leaves, on that leafing. All being well, just leave the outside edges untouched. There we are, that's that tree coming in. Yeah, I'm happy, pretty much happy with that. And of course we want to go a little bit lighter for, I hope this is lighter, there we go, for the sunlit rebate, because the sun's coming from the left today, well, at this time of day, so that looks pretty good to me. The same colour where I can see edging stones along this area here. There's some white, but there's also some of these lovely edging stones. It's nice to leave some white because that's how they are. That's good. That seems to work quite well. Now the roof, very grey. Not much of the roof we can see because mostly behind the tree, but I will suggest it rather than just leaving it. Got to watch that you balance the whole thing together rather than creating just one sort of colour. Now we've got the ridge tile there that stands up a little like that, points nicely, and it then lays back like that, and then it goes back into that tree. Then we're going to be a little weaker to pick up some little touches where perhaps along the edge there, and one or two little touches within the roof work at that angle, but of course the rest will be that lovely strong hedge. Yeah, I think that probably does it. Just knowing the end result, that's the hardest thing for someone that's learning, is to understand what the end result will look like. It's hard enough for me because one never really knows, but you have it in your mind's eye really to get the end result in your head before you even start. Now I've chosen quite a sort of earthy yellow, or green, sorry, for this little hedge area. It's got one or two little light bits in here and there, but I don't want to make too much of that, because if I do, it's going to attract the eye out of picture, and that's one thing I don't require. There is just part of that hedge standing up there like that. So one of those little bits there, just to give it a hedge-like feel. And then that comes, oh, then we leave spiky bits for that bush, and then that sweeps across like that. But of course it stands up, so always remember to paint your hedging standing up. Don't be tempted to just put a line across and think, well, that's the hedge in, and put a bit of brown in that, the lower area, because that's where the a bit of planting. I'm putting this all wet into wet because when I put the posts in, they will be darker. They are actually lighter, but they're going to be darker when I paint it. And then a grey again for the sunlit side of this wall. It's going to be quite light. There we go. And that's going to be quite light because it's in sunlight. There's a bit of a hedge there, so that'd be useful to put in. There's also just about see another building in the back there with a roof and a chimney that probably won't be seen, but I'm going to put it in just in case we need to suggest something going on in the background. There we are. And in actual fact, that roof continues through here, but I'm not going any further than that. I'm imagining I'm sitting down a little bit further than what I actually am. Right, so that's that. Now, this lovely tree in the background. Now let's deal with that first. And it's very much sienna-y, or burnt sienna, raw sienna, but of course it's got to have blue in it, and I'm going to elect for a little Prussian blue because that'll make it green rather than too, because there is a bit of green in there. Just kill it back a bit. There we are, very earthy green. And what I'm going to do, simplest way to paint a tree like this is just to pull it down like that, because really that is exactly the shape that I can see, to be fair about it. So it's a little thicker there, and it sort of like gets lost in amongst that one there, and just some little touches as it overhangs the outside edge there. It's a bit open, one or two areas there, but then we can see the trunk in amongst that, going a little darker now in places because it is a little darker. And let's add more red, more of the burnt sienna to make that darker. There we go. And if you put some dark patches in, particularly on this shadow side, you begin to see where the light areas are, because unless you've got darks, as I'm always banging on about, you can't never see your lights. So that's always something to be aware of, really. And I'm just now picking around those soft trees there, because I think they come forward over that. Anyway, we'll soon know when we put a trunk in. Now I've changed to this lovely little mop brush that points as well, just to ring the changes a bit, just to come down. Just got to put that bit of blue-grey capping in, or there we've got some blue-grey sections there. Let's just load the brush a little more. That's it. There we are. That just overlaps down on like that. It doesn't have to be perfect shape. I'm saying that because it isn't. Mine certainly isn't that perfect shape, so don't get bogged down with shapes. It's a little bit more grey, I think. There we go. That's better. Got a little bit of red in there. That's better. Right. Now we have this bit of hedging there. If I pan up, you can see how far I've got to this stage. So I'm using an awful lot of license with colours and shapes, but overall you can see exactly what it is. That's the idea of this painting. Now, as I say, I'm going to paint the pinky area there. So that's, to me, pink, that's alizarin crimson. So I'm putting in some alizarin crimson there. I like the idea of that pinky flower heads there. It's overhanging the path a little, but you can still go around the outside of that. Then we're going in with some greens. Now, to start with, they're warm greens that just flash into that. In actual fact, they're browns. Well, they are now. Now a bit of burnt, a bit of Prussian in there with a bit of raw sienna. A little cadmium just to make it a little greener. Some nice little touches there. And I'm just picking up the side of that building now. It doesn't lap around that building. It sits just behind it. Now, plenty of blue Prussian, plenty of cadmium, and a little burnt sienna, because there will be some quite dark areas just tucked in there and along the base. And then you've got the green areas coming out from that. Be fairly dark under the overhang of that roof line too. There we are. And just allow that to dry off before you go too far. That's that little passage sorted. Now the richer green is going to be in this tree here. So I'm starting off with that lovely rich green from the overhanging branches of that tree. And I'm putting them in amongst those light areas, and that'll get denser as it comes, and just some into the darker areas as well. Don't want to overdo that. It's mainly on the outside edges, I suppose, that I really need that. And it's going to be quite light above here too, around that chimney. It's that lovely overhanging tree. It's the outside edges I'm more concerned with rather than the actual shape at the moment. Let's just pick up a bit more colour so it goes in a little darker. Don't want too much. It's quite dense in places, and then it opens again a bit more there. Maybe some little touches the outside edge there. It's an unusual shape, but it will work. I can see that that's coming along quite nicely. Just dotting and dashing and just trying to pick up these outside leaves. Background to that we'll put in later. There we go. So that's that tree put in. Got the green grey of the frame. So around the outside, like that. And then we've got a section there, and they're split with the point of the brush. And then we'll put in the dark colour shortly. So there, inside there, that's split, down there, and then that's split again. With another split there. Right, okay. So there's another little split there. Here we go. That's okay, that'll work. So that's the grey, more or less, of the windows. Yep. Now let's put the trees in. Right, browns. Let's use burnt umber for that, for the lovely old tree that stands there. Bit more moisture on that brush. Don't want this to be too dense, because if it is, it just won't look right, basically. I'm just going to soften where it enters in to the tree there. And now continuing the trunks up, but obviously they do get more narrow. So, and then of course we see the very smaller areas there like that, and with another branch coming out there, another branch coming out there, coming out there. Oh, and of course these branches come out there to hold that, like that. We'll take one off of there, it just looks nice. You know, if it looks nice and seems to work, that is good enough for me. Yes, now this fence is going to be a bit richer, so a bit more red in the mix for this fence there. 1, 2, 3, and then we've got 1, 2, 2, and then of course the one that lays near to the ground. And see the way I've got perspective there? That's worked quite well, so we're going to get it together really. Now we're doing burnt sienna with Prussian blue for this trunk, which is slightly green, I did notice. Look at that, look. Just sweep that away. Just a blob of water that has no business there, but there you go. That's what you get when you paint outdoors. And that's what I love, the challenge, the fun of actually painting out of doors and seeing what you can produce with limited amount of materials, really. Let's make that a little bit wider. And my old trick, as always, is to lose that into the ground with just by softening the base like that and pull that away, start of the shadow. Excuse me. Right, now the other area that we've yet to paint in is the continuation of this light area here, and that comes in there because there was a space there where it hadn't got anything in, so we need to fill that in. And there's a hedge there, as I believe, but that will remain to be seen whether that comes in or not. We'll leave that to see how we go. Okay, now we go some really darks. Okay, well, we're doing Windsor blue and Indian red for the very dark, a bit more red in that, there we are, for the very dark window sections. Just got to get this brush shaped correctly. As I've said before, a lot of people say to me, but you're using those special brushes. Well, if there is a special brush around, please let me know, because unfortunately I'm only using brushes that everybody else uses, really. It just depends how you shape them, I suppose, and if you shape them correctly. A little bit of fiddling to do, but there's the panes of glass in. Not that difficult, really. you know. Now, while we have this, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to paint in the shadow side of that chimney. It's actually metal. But, of course, to the right-hand side, we've got shadow. So pull that down like that. Then, just before it dries, we just lightly damp that side, and hopefully we should get some sort of running to give us a sense. There we go. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fine. That's enough. Let's not get overworked up with that. Oh, while we've got this window colour, what about, forgot about this window that's actually in here. We have a window there and a window there. Oh well, they're in. Getting a little bit mizzly here now, but I think I should make it. Right, let me put the shadows in. Now my shadows are Windsor blue, Indian red, a little bit of green in the mix there, but it's mainly blue and red. A bit more red in there. There we go. Don't want to be too dark. We certainly don't want to be too light with that. There we go. There's a nice cool greeny grey, I suppose you'd call that. Okay, that's the mix. Now we put it under there and just gently in there. It goes a little higher there. There's not a big overhang here, but it's a sort of overhang that would cast a shadow of some sort, like that, and I'll just pull that out there like that. Then there's a shadow in the reveal of that window, and down the left hand side, sun coming from the left, remember, across the top, quite a deep reveal down the left hand side. There is a sill, so you've got a sill shadow. Always makes a difference if you put that in. While we have that, I'm going to put the back edge of that in really dark, and the underside of that, and just where that capping comes there. Go. Now, still got this colour going, so we've got quite a big overhang from that shed, that side and there. This is quite a large overhang shadow there, like that. Yep. A bit more red now, just ringing the changes really for this fence here. There, 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 and there. Just really for this fencing shadow. And you will see just a little on the underside here and there. But it's like all these things, don't want to paint it all in. You want the eye to think that, you know, some things are left to the viewer. That's what I always say, leave something to the viewer to think about. Right, now this trunk is going to be very dark down that back edge, and some of these branches are. We'll put the twig branches in shortly. That's going to work out okay. And we're now going to have a casting shadow onto the building. Now this is not going to be as dark, but it's going to be there. Not overpainting too much of one or two little touches within that, but not too much, because that is casting a shadow across there like that, across there like that. And then of course it comes from there like that. And that's given that real atmosphere like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We have a little bit of that shadow here, not too much, a little bit on the left hand side, just to give it a bit of form and shape. Surprising what you can do with shadow. You know, it gives form and shape to most things really. Good. I've got lots of little bits to do, but nothing too ridiculous. We do have that shadow there, which is just cast under there, and then we use the point of the brush like that, just to give some form and shape. Of course, always the thing that is done, but most of it's catching light, and then that's casting a shadow like that. Like that. I think that's sufficient for that. And then we're going to be a little darker with this shadow, like that. Whoops, just spread that through. Right, we're going to go in with some dark blue green here, because we have a hedge, and that hedge stands somewhere about there, like that, and that reveals the light on that trunk, and that finishes probably about there. Alright, so then we need some shadow on that, but we'll allow that to dry. While we have this dark green, let's give this little path a little bit of interest along this edge there. Some little tufts of grass standing up there, like that. There is some little tufts along here in amongst that brown, and just scratch it with your finger. See the way I'm scratching it with my finger? They're getting larger as they come forward, just where they need trimming really, which sometimes gives a lovely edge to it. And you just run your finger across there, and that gives perspective, and that goes out of picture. Or we've got a shadow, we use that for the shadow for the underneath the head, the fence there. That's it. That's that going out. Good. Let's have a think about how far to use this colour to create shadow within this tree, because obviously there will be, it is in sunlight, but of course you've got a certain amount of shadow on this outside. So like that. Quite a bit of shadow on the outside here, but of course as it comes up to the top you get less and less. You just see just use the point of the brush really. Don't like to get too fussy. I just keep telling myself that, but it doesn't always work out that way. but should do. And then of course as we come this side we get less and less, so you know we're getting sort of less and less of those edges, a little bit underneath. That's where most of the shadow is, but you can get the gist of where the sunlight's coming from. That's the idea of that. There we go. Got one or two little finishing touches, but basically pretty much happy with that. Let's just put a little bit of green shadow in this fence, this bit of hedging here, just to help lighten up, because most of that is in shadow and that's around that shed, and it's sort of like a bit more of a formal hedge there, so that helps to show up that building too. There we are. Just remove some from the brush and just give it that spiky hedge-like feel. And there is sort of like another sort of tree thing going on there that goes into that, like that really. And as it goes out of picture, I'm just going to put a bit of brown with that just to ring the changes, because there is a lovely old tree that's just out of picture there that would benefit from being darker too. But I want to highlight the building and not the... That's it. Pretty much it, I think. It's rigger time. Right, now the first thing I want to do is to just sharpen up that edge there. And just pull that through, because I want that to lay in the ground. And this then, main trunk goes there like that. Then that goes up there. It actually comes towards us a little bit. We can't, I'm not going to show too much in the way of where this trunk goes, because I don't think that's necessary to show too much. Do we have any going up there? Well, that goes out of picture. I know that for one thing's for certain. And so just put a few up there just to make it look like a tree really. That's really all I'm doing, just trying to make it look like a tree. Maybe I'll soften that out shortly. Not sure that that works. And by softening it out, I'll show you what I mean now, while I've got the chance. Bit of dark green. Darken it up all around there. There we are. And that's helped to soften that lower part of that tree. Right, now we go in with the rigger now. And this is where we pick up details. The capping there, just underside of that, and just the start of that there, and just to show that. Go. See the way I've got that tin-like, well hopefully anyway, feel, and then just a bit of edging here, because it's all about this lovely old building and not the trees that surround it. They accompany it, but it's not the only thing. And of course we have tiles down there like that, tiles down there, then we have these overlapping tiles there, overlapping tiles there, just suggestion of them like that. yeah, that's good enough. Let's not get bogged down. My favourite word, bogged down, because there is a lintel stone there. There is a lintel stone there. Then there is a stone there that is for the sill. Going to pick up just a touch of the frame. Don't want to show too much of that frame. That's in shadow, but that works. And then, of course, we have a suggestion of stonework that is just a series. And of course, the stone meets the ground there. It's just a series of marks, really, that that I think suggests stone rather than and of course some of them are quite narrow slates, but you don't want too many of these in. That's where the trouble starts. So you put quite a few in some places, very little in others, and then as you go towards the shadow area, that's probably left well alone, although always best to put a little bit in, I suppose, so as you can see just some little touches here and there. There we are, that's that. And then of course just a little bit of perspective here as those stones go back out of picture. Like that. May put some shadow on that shortly. That's it. Right, where else are we going to put these? Just to highlight and thicken up some areas. Bit of an area there. Needs a bit more depth. Anywhere that needs depth really is by far the best place to put this sort of business. So the way I'm just dropping those in and flicking them in and just allowing them to, and that's too heavy, so let's just scratch that back and lose some of that. Good. We're coming along nicely. Now we've got the black table and chairs. Well, how are we going to put that in? Well, let's do the chairs first. I'll tell you what, we'll do the table is there. That's the surround. Like that. Right. Then we have a chair here. That sits on the back. We have a chair here. That handle, seat. Like that. Just the two. That'll do me. Well, it is a tour anyway. Let's just call it a tour, shall we? There we are. Just a little bit of something a little less intense now for the detailing there, just down the back edge, around the window. There's a door there. That's sufficient. A little bit darker now, just to pick up some detail on the fence, just where it's really dark, needs darkening up. You know when you look at something what needs darkening and what needs leaving well alone, really. Just needs a bit of extra trimming there, I think. There. Good. Now we do have a hanging basket, which I'm going to put in last minute, which is something that I didn't draw in, but I can put it in because I think it adds. Oh, and there's some tubs here. Anyway, let's get this hanging basket in, and it sort of sits there. So we've got some pinks, some oranges, some yellows, late winter flowering, and then that yellow with a bit of, right, that's like a green, because we have some tubs here. So let's put that's actually too dark for that. So let's have another go. Let's just put more of a yellow green, because that's what it is. That's better. And a tub there. Yellow green. Yep, I'll show what I mean in a minute. And right, what are the tubs? Oh, very, very grey. Very sort of light grey, really. Reds and... there we go. Brown greys. Put a bit of burnt umber with that. There we go. That makes it brown grey. That's what I'm looking for. Quite... well, it wasn't what I'm looking for, so let's go a little bit more brown with this. Let's rub that in. There we are. And they're like tubs. We're going to stand them on the grass because we was late putting them in. So let's just square tubs. Shadow on those later. Now some dark green, not too dark, for the hanging baskets. Like that. And you've got varying bits and bobs hanging from that. Does give a bit of colour, I would say, that it's always worth putting in, I suppose. You know, other than that, the wall was quite bland. There we go, and that's the hanger for that. Well, I've actually put in the seating there, a couple of tubs and the hanging basket. Quite an easy thing to do. Put in the greens, the reds and yellows, the reds, put the box shape in, just waiting for that to dry before I put the accompanying shadow. And while that's drying, I'm now looking to put another shadow. If I can just lose that, because that's going to cause me problems here in a moment. And this really is just cloud shadow, really. So it's just a blue grey. And we'll have to have a shadow that comes across here. My favourite thing to do near the end of a painting. Unless you do this, you never quite get the atmosphere that is, I think, required. And it's a soft shadow because it's a cloud shadow. Go, see how that makes all the difference. And perhaps a touch in this side as well. My old favourite. It's not actually from anywhere. But it depicts the fact, it pulls it all together, really. My personal opinion. Good. And where else are we going to put those shadows? Another little place for these shadows is the right hand side of that and the underneath. And that is where you'll get the feeling of the hanging basket against the wall. And of course there will be some little dark touches on that as well. So that's casting a shadow on the wall, and this is then casting a shadow to the right of that, and just down that back edge too, like that, and within that somewhere, there we go. Just see if we can drop that within that there. See the way I'm putting it all on that back edge? Try and get the feeling of light on the right hand side. Sorry, the left hand side. Yeah. I don't think we really need too much more, except a little bit more. I just prefer to see this a little darker in the end. One or two light patches, but just feel with the light coming in that position, I'd just sooner see it darker. That'll give light to the shadow. There we go. You always know when I'm thinking hard because I'm not talking. There we go. That's cast shadow there too. And I think we must be near to completion. My personal opinion, we only know when we take the surround away. Oh, hang on a moment. Not quite completion. Forgot to put the shadow underneath the table and chairs there and across there. There we are. Let's take the surround away and see what we've got. Good, pleased with that. Well, there's the scene, the little cottage, and really this is my version I've just put down onto watercolour paper. And I think you'll agree that it does have light, it does have a certain amount of balance to it. I like the idea that the path leads the eye to the back of the building and then out into the distance. You've got plenty of area to hold in. It just needs signing, of course, and that is done quite simply in any paint that you have kicking around on the palette. So I've got a bit of a sort of blue. There you are. Let's try that darker blue. I don't want to get too brilliant with this, and I'm going to sign it here just on the turn, because I just feel that at the moment is about the right place for it to go. My normal signature doesn't change a great deal when I use a brush. So there we have it, snappers, and I've just got to put the sign in. And all I'm going to do for that, I'm going to indicate snappers, so it's S-N-A-P-P-E-R, and there we go. And that is snappers here at Penrose Burton Cottages. Well, there you have it. That's my version of this lovely cottage that's behind me. Hope you've enjoyed watching. That was my accommodations called Snappers here at Penrose Burton's Holiday Cottages. It's a conversion from farm buildings that I think make lovely subjects. And I now have this to take home as a happy memory of this stay here in Cornwall. overlooking the Camel Valley.